Hezbollah and babies were murdered and mutilated, which they were. They were. However, that same tone never exists when it's an Israeli strike blowing Palestinian children to bits. Odd.
Israel is vowing to hit back hard after a rocket attack killed 12 children and teenagers in the Golan Heights over the weekend. Both Israel and the United States blame the Hezbollah militant group in Lebanon for the strike. Hezbollah denies responsibility. Deborah Patta visited the scene of the attack.
A funeral lament for the 12 children blown apart by a Hezbollah rocket. The villagers of Majd al-Shams gathered in their thousands to mourn, as if embracing the long row of white-shrouded coffins.
The children were playing soccer just behind me when the sirens went off. They then tried to rush to the shelter. You can see it's pockmarked with shrapnel, but there simply wasn't enough time before that rocket slammed into the pitch. And you see these charred...
Oh, by the way, this is a pretty interesting situation. This is a pretty interesting situation because it turns out Western media is capable of talking about a bombing attack, like talking about a bombing where like children are slaughtered with incredibly graphic terms. Yeah, it turns out that they can do that. Because I thought like this entire fucking time, like they just were woefully incapable. Like they were just like weirdly restricted to cover this kind of stuff. Yeah, new journalism unlocked. This is a new skill in American journalism. Well, I guess it was an old skill when we're talking about fucking Russia. Yeah. Also, classic situation where, of course, it's Druze children and it's Arab Israelis who don't have the same access, who sometimes aren't even considered full Israelis. This is in the Golan Heights as well, which is annexed Israeli territory. I don't know what the actual details are. These are Syrians in Syria. Yeah, no, but they don't consider themselves, they're not even Israelis, they're Syrians. Yeah, they don't consider themselves Israelis. And the thing is, but Israel is using this as a way to gear up for a war in Lebanon, to be like, no, these are Israeli citizens when we love them and we care about them. Just like that one time there was a piece of shrapnel that fell on the fucking makeshift house of one of the, Palestinian citizens of Israel when Iran retaliated against Israel's original attack on the Iranian consulate. And then Israel was like, we love our Palestinian citizens of Israel, while they were like in the process of evacuating them out of their fucking homes for the 700th time. So I don't know. People are saying that this is like potentially an Iron Dome, but I doubt it. That was the Bedouin population. And then very quickly, as I said at the time, that like the likelihood that they got hit was because they don't have the same kind of Iron Dome coverage and defense. It came to be true.
An attack on a football field in the Israel.
Does this show the graphic imagery? I don't want to see it because it's really fucked up.
Israeli-occupied Golan Heights killed at least 12 children over the weekend. Israel's military spokesman referred to those killed as Israeli citizens, but when he did so, he was immediately interrupted.
These guys are not Israeli. They famously didn't accept Israeli citizenship in Majd al-Shams. There's an iconic picture from 1982 of them throwing their passports to the ground. Keep in mind, 90% of Golan Heights population was ethnically cleansed in 1967 and the years that followed. Majd al-Shams was one of those towns that stayed pretty much untouched. Every other town was partially or fully emptied.
Interrupted.
שבה אזרחי מדינת ישראל ממג'ד אל-שמס, קהילה, עדה דרוזית. הם לא אזרחי מדינת ישראל. אנחנו מחבקים אותם.
And when some Israeli politicians, including far-right minister Bezalel Smotrich, tried to attend the funeral of the victims, this happened.
Like, it's so obvious that they're like trying to act like they give a shit about these people.
So what is this all about, and how can it help us understand the Druze community that live in the highly contested Israeli-occupied Golan Heights? So this attack happened on the Druze village of Majd.
And more stuff about Golan Heights. Donald Trump permanently recognized the annexation of Golan Heights. It's Syrian territory that Israel currently occupies. Donald Trump made America recognize that occupation as just and legitimate, which was insane. But
Majd al-Shams. And the 12 children who were killed were not Israeli passport holders or Israeli citizens. In fact, they were Syrian Arabs, like much of the Druze community who live in that area.
غير واضحة عند كثيرين. سكان مجد الشمس والجولان المحتل ككل يعرفون نفسهم باعتبارهم سوريين 100%. عام 67 حتى اليوم رفضوا كل محاولات إسرائيل لسلخهم عن وطنهم الأم سوريا.
And most residents...
Trump just followed through on a promise made in the Clinton cabinet. Yeah, dude, I know. There's just like such a weird reason that like no other administration did that though. It's everything that the Trump cabinet did or the Trump administration did in terms of our dealings with Israel was, events that were previously set in motion that every Democratic and even Republican administrations would not touch for an obvious reason, because they knew that the tensions would inevitably rise if they were to do so. If they were to give Israel that bone that they were desperately looking for, that they would go crazy. Like, that's why Donald Trump was uniquely bad on Israel. That like these were prior promises and assurances made that always had gotten in prior administrations, both Democratic and Republican, continuation. Like they would be like, oh yeah, we're passing it down. We're passing it down. There were multiple things that he did, like the moving of the embassy to Jerusalem. This was another thing that they just kept pushing. They kept pushing back on. Donald Trump, on the other hand, was like, no, fuck it, YOLO. We love that.
Of Majd al-Shams absolutely refuse Israeli citizenship. Following the attack, many people were quick to point blame on who was responsible for the deadly strike. Israel, the US, and some Syrians blamed the Lebanese group Hezbollah. But Hezbollah claimed the strike was from a misfired Israeli Iron Dome rocket. The funeral procession for the 12 killed children was attended by much of the Druze community in Majd al-Shams. The residents kicked out several Israeli politicians who tried to attend the funeral, including members of the Israeli parliament and in particular far-right minister Bezalel Smotrich, and as they kicked him out, they shouted, "Get out of here, you criminal." Those living in the occupied Golan Heights are now a mix of Syrian Arabs and Israeli settlers. Syrians in the Golan taking on Israeli citizenship has become more common since the Syrian war erupted in 2011, but the vast majority reject it. Non-citizen Druze, who are a religious minority group, are regarded as having permanent residency status by the Israeli government, but can't participate in elections. Some members of the Druze community do in fact serve in the Israeli army. The Golan Heights is a strategic area that borders Lebanon, Syria, Israel, and Jordan. It's recognized as part of Syria but was occupied by Israel in 1967 and later annexed by Israel in 1981. UN Resolution 242 calls for Israel to withdraw from the Golan Heights and other territories it occupied in 1967, including
best democracy in the Middle East,
Gaza and the West Bank. But back in 2019, Donald Trump said the US should fully recognize Israel's sovereignty over the Golan Heights. Some Israeli officials who blamed Hezbollah for the attack now warn of a strong response, something they've done multiple times in the past 9 months. But Lebanon's parliament speaker said Lebanon absolutely does not want war. But now many people are asking the question, will Israel use this attack to further expand its war?
Yeah, I mean, look, is there a likelihood that this was a Hezbollah strike? I think so. I don't think it's like that. Like, there's no strategic reason for this, for Hezbollah to do this, but, I know that Hezbollah has denied responsibility. There are some on the ground eyewitnesses, but I don't think this was highly unlikely. It was the Iron Dome. The explosion was far too big for the Tamir warhead, and the interceptor would be burning fuel until impact. So a glowing projectile with smoke trail would be visible in videos flying into the ground if this was the case, which it wasn't. I don't think even Israel wants the smoke of a second front without the U.S. being ready to go boost on the ground. No, they do. Don't they typically own up to it when they strike? Why deny now? I mean, it could be a misfire. Like, it could be a Hezbollah misfire. And they don't, because they didn't like actually strike Israeli targets and instead ended up striking a bunch of Druze children playing football. So like, in order to save face. But in terms of like this being a false flag operation by Israel, that is the other angle here. That's what people are saying that it is. or a potential interceptor, a Tamir interceptor, misfiring and like striking this target. I don't know. I don't think that's the case. Seems a little bit far-fetched. The interceptor, I mean. They've claimed misfires before though and admitted when they were at fault. When Hezbollah did before hit civilians, he admitted it and apologized, which is honestly weird if they deny that. I don't know. I've been watching Israeli media very closely for the past few days, and despite trying, they just couldn't for the life of them find a Jablani Druze resident of Majdal Shams that would actually call for the war. The few interviewees that they did were originally from inside the Green Line. Every signal from the Druze community has been a call for peace. But for those of you who are asking, like, Israel doesn't want the smoke from a two-front war, no, there's definitely a lot of appetite in Israel for a two-front war. I do not think that the Israeli leadership is thinking clearly about opening up a second front against a much better equipped enemy.
Odd children's bicycles left behind.
These paramedics arrived 10 minutes later.
The whole scene was truly chaotic. People screaming, searching for their children.
We found only dead kids. It was really hard to watch. I've never seen kids like that, and I've seen dead bodies.
Wait, what? You've never seen kids like that? I guess you haven't. Oh, well, I guess that's fair. They don't show what they do to kids in Gaza and Israel. So that's probably why. I believe her when she says she's never seen kids like that. No, I'm telling you, I think it's literally because they straight up don't show images of Gaza. She's in the IDF though. Yeah, they don't. I mean, she's fucking working in Golan Heights. If she hasn't fucking toured Gaza, if she wasn't in Gaza, then she probably hasn't seen it.
But not like that.
Israel and Hezbollah have been trading fire since October 7, but it's feared this escalation could trigger all-out war. The US has called for restraint as Israel vows to retaliate, warning there will be a price to pay. But backed by Iran and with its massive arsenal of missiles, Hezbollah is a far more formidable foe than Hamas in Gaza.
Druze leader Walid Jumblat denies Hezbollah had anything to do with this. He would know he's a good ally to Hezbollah. Yeah, the thing is, like, it also doesn't make sense for Hezbollah to like directly target Syrian territory, specifically the Druze, who are not exactly pro-Israel by any means, by any metric. As a matter of fact, are openly anti-Israel and contentious. I don't care about the one guy, the Walid guy, but like I'm saying, from a larger, in terms of a broader snapshot of Hezbollah's actions, I think the last time that they actually recognized when they struck like a Palestinian citizen of Israel, like a Palestinian target on accident, they took ownership over it, but it was a long time ago. And beyond that, part of the reason why they would potentially deny this, even if they were accidentally responsible for it, Hasan, it's not true. Most Druze living in Israel support Israel and even serve in the army very commonly. This is in the Golan Heights. This is the one territory where, like, as Time Without an OWO was saying, they famously threw their Israeli passports. And even though they have permanent residency in Israel, they refuse. So you're wrong. Yes, there are a lot of Druze. There are a lot of Druze and Arabs in Israel that serve, not a lot, but like there's a decent amount of Druze and Arabs in the Israeli military. But this is not what we're talking about here. So I think that my analysis or my speculation, my speculation alert, is that it's most likely a misfire, but because the tensions are super high and Hezbollah has been like targeting northern Israeli territory and IDF positions deliberately, and in most circumstances, not even like directly targeting Israeli citizens and civilians, even though like obviously there are still fires that occur and sometimes they do hit civilians as well. Overall, this would be the reason for why they don't take ownership over this attack and instead deny it. Because like I said, tensions are very high. So that's my speculation on it. They have a tense relationship with the Druze. They make up a third of the Lebanese population, and although their leader Jumblat is pro-Hezbollah, many Druze aren't. And so being seen to kill a dozen Druze children next door in the Golan Heights, even if accidentally, is not good optics. Yeah, that's what I think. Exactly. Why would Hezbollah admit fault for accidentally killing a Palestinian Jew, but not the Golan Druze? What? Those were likely Sting missiles that are precision guided. None of that makes sense. No. Yeah, there is no reason. Elon Luz is such a liar, Lamau. There is no reason for. I don't even think there's a reason for Israel to fucking deliberately target and kill a bunch of Druze children there. I don't think that there is any reason for either party, like Israel or Hezbollah, to strike there. Do you know, dude, you know Israel, Lamau? No, I think like if Israel was to do a false flag operation, I suspected they would do it in an area that is more like, in an area that strikes the chord, strikes at the heart of Israeli citizens. Like the Druze, I don't think is enough pretext for the rest of Israeli society. But maybe they would falsely claim them and be like, oh, they hit our soil, they hit our people again. Especially considering Bezalel Smotrich tried to go to the fucking funeral, even though he was yelled at. Ultimately, I don't know. Israel's war on Gaza live. Health Ministry declares polio epidemic in Gaza. Oh, here. Israel has promised that Hezbollah will pay a heavy price for a deadly attack on Israeli-occupied Golan Heights. Hezbollah denies that it carried out the attack. Hezbollah has admitted other accidental strikes in the past. But the United States and Israel are saying it's Hezbollah. Hezbollah is saying it's not us and it's Israel. We shall see what happens if there's like any sort of independent analysis on the matter. What is this? The U.S. is leading diplomatic efforts to rein in an anticipated Israeli response to the deadly strike on Golan. To keep this episode contained, the U.S. is urging Israel not to strike Beirut, Dahiyah, or civil infrastructure in Lebanon. If they avoid civilians and they avoid Beirut and its suburbs, then their attack will be well calculated, Deputy Parliament Speaker Elias Bousaab told Reuters. They would not do that. When has Israel done that? Not exactly known for making calculated retaliations. I guess with the exception of going up against Iran. That's the only time when I saw the retaliation be like somewhat more calculated and measured. Even though their original act that sparked the Iranian retaliation was not calculated. The security sources had earlier told Reuters that Hezbollah had pulled out of some key sites in South Lebanon and the eastern Bekaa Valley, but had not taken similar measures in Dahiyah. All 5 sources who spoke to Reuters on the diplomatic effort said they aim to achieve a calibrated approach similar to which contained April's exchange of missiles and drone attacks between Israel and Iran after Israel's strike on the Iranian consulate in Damascus. You probably saw the Israel Twitter account post the all eyes on Majdal Sham's AI image. They've definitely successfully used it to drum up support for war among Jews. Regardless, it may have been a misfire. Hezbollah fires on northern Golan have increased in months, but it's very unlikely this was an Iron Dome, in my opinion. There's no evidence for that, so please be careful, chat. None of it changes the fact that the community itself doesn't want these deaths to be used for war. Yeah.
People are also trapped in a relentless cycle of despair. And just this weekend...
But one thing I do know is that the coverage on this immediately from Western media that is often very reluctant, very, very suspiciously reluctant to cover with active voice, they immediately were like, hey, what's up? This is definitely Hezbollah and babies were murdered and mutilated, which they were. They were. However, that same tone never exists when it's an Israeli strike blowing Palestinian children to bits. Odd.
Israel issued more evacuation orders, exhausted and furious. This is the 5th time we've had to move, says this woman. Where do we go? Thousands of Palestinians once again forced out of shelters into the unknown.
The United Nations says that now only 14% of Gaza is not under evacuation orders, leaving people destitute, homeless, and completely out of safe options to run to. Michelle?
Crisis beyond crisis. Deborah Patta in East Jerusalem. Thank
you. Yeah.
Israel's security cabinet.
Israel authorized Netanyahu's retaliation against Hezbollah as well. The Lebanon government condemns deadly rocket attack.
Whatever happened.
But says it does not give Israel a license to kill. And now Turkey is
now
saying
that
they might enter Israel to help Palestinians. Here's Erdogan, which is what led Israel to say that Turkey should be removed from NATO.
Erdogan says his country could intervene in Israel's war on Gaza. He was speaking to members of his party on Sunday. Erdogan made references to the 2020 conflict in Libya when Turkey sent troops to support the government. He also mentioned last year's operation when Turkey's ally.
He's such a watermelon salesman, bro. I mean, he's not doing shit. He ain't doing shit, okay? He ain't doing shit, big dog. Let's keep it at $150, okay?
Azerbaijan took control of the Nagorno-Karabakh region. Erdogan says Turkey could do something similar in Israel, but didn't elaborate.
We need to be very strong so that Israel cannot do these ridiculous things to Palestine. Just as we entered Karabakh, just as we entered Libya, we can do something similar to them. There is no reason for us not to. We only have to be strong so that we can take these steps.
Well, let's bring in our correspondent, Sinem Korsiolu. She's joining us live from Istanbul. Sinem, what are Turkey's options here?
Elizabeth, first let me underline that we're a bit lost in translation in this topic because many international media outlets have translated Erdogan's speech as if he said, we can do the same in Israel. So I have to underline that he gave the Turkish military support in the Karabakh and Libya wars as the reference, which were no boots on the ground strategy for Turkey. This is very important because Turkey has many military involvements, like military operations that it has conducted since 2019 in northern Syria, like the operation in Afrin and other places. And those were on-the-ground operations. Turkish military were involved along with the Syrian opposition fighter groups. But here he's talking about another example where a Turkish army was involved in technology terms with its armed drones, but no boots on the ground. But Turkish military supported the paramilitary groups on the ground in Libya and the Azerbaijan military in Nagorno-Karabakh. So that's first what we have to underline.
Yeah, you know who else supported the Azerbaijan military? Israel. Azeri natural gas and oil go directly through Turkish pipelines into Israel, which powers like 30% of the Israeli grid. Fun facts about the complicated relationship between Azerbaijan, Turkey, and Israel. That's still very much in motion, by the way. He's over here being like, we're going to invade Israel. It's like, bro, you can shut off the power. Like, what do you mean? You could literally just do this and turn the fucking faucet off. Obviously, you can't. That would be, insane, but you could.
We understand that he's trying to mean he has the strength.
Weird that Turkey, Israel, and Azerbaijan don't come together and join together against their common enemies, Armenians. No, they do. They literally do. That is a thing that they did. They did do that.
Power to do the same thing for Gaza, supporting the groups on the ground in Gaza. This is at least what we understand. But of course, this speech by Erdogan, I don't think that it was made by a coincidence. I don't think that he was trying to he was trying to mean something else, but he was trying to show that Turkey wants to be involved also politically in the solution for Gaza, because we have seen Beijing mediated between the Palestinian groups, and there was an agreement that the Mahmoud Abbas would be recognized, his group would be recognized as the sole leader of the Palestinians. But now we are seeing that Erdogan is saying Mahmoud Abbas hasn't responded to his request, to his invitation to come and speak in the Turkish parliament. We understand that Erdogan wants to turn a new page on this debate and wants to be involved in the political solution process for the post-war in Gaza. Back to you.
All right, so thank you for that. That's Sinem Korsiolu live in Istanbul.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel.
Fucking watermelon salesman ass motherfucker.